I popped open iTunes and I found like some podcasts, about 15 of them. And I started to gather their emails and just said, hey, I got this friend over here. He's amazing. He has this SaaS business and he's about to do some Series B. And here's a cool story. Would you like an intro? 3 responded and he got 1 placement. That placement, fast forward 3 months, someone listened to that podcast and they bought his business. That podcast had 149 listeners.
All right. So we're going to get into VidTal podcast today with Lucas Selman, going over his approach to really growing businesses with targeted podcast tours is what he calls it. It's a really cool strategy. He breaks it down entirely in this podcast so you can take it and apply it, and really recommend it. Also, just want to let you know, in case you haven't yet tried VidTal, right now we have a 7-day free trial of VidTal 2.0, which is our all new updated version of VidTal with, I believe we have 8 million YouTube ads in here and landing pages. So go in here, search, find new stuff. It's pretty incredible. So you can search on a few different levels, but you can type in a brand. Let's see what Jasper is running. So no idea if they're actually running anything. Let's say Jasper, boom. Let's say Casper mattresses. Okay. Got a bunch of stuff. Who knows? All right. Look for rankings here. You can search by category. So let's say beauty and fitness. Okay, cool. There we go. Got it all broken down, advertiser by advertiser. You can even look at company level. So this is the actual legal entities advertising. They might have multiple brands underneath them. So you can really slice and dice and see who's advertising what. You can dig into their actual ads if you go there. Creative tool here. This actually breaks down your creative with AI and gives you some great suggestions and a whole lot more. So again, check it out, vidtal.com. Claim your free 7-day trial and get full access to the tool. But in the meantime, let's dive right into the podcast and listen to what Lucas has to say about podcast tours.
Lucas Selman.
Yes, sir.
Well, welcome to the call, man. And it's so funny because we just randomly got connected like 2 days ago or something, and you were talking about podcast. Like, dude, lay into it. Like, tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, man. So about more than a year ago, I started to place friends of mine on podcasts, especially SaaS founders and founders in Sweden and Europe that wanted more exposure, like in the global market. And ads were a big headache, man. Not only is it, costing more and more, but it's just a headache to run ads, and you gotta be somewhat skilled. And for some reason, I don't know why, I I had this idea that, hey, podcasts, and I've been seeing this Andrew Tate guy just getting a bunch of podcasts, clipping those up and just spreading those out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Why? And I did some research on podcasts, and I'm like, dude, this is a big industry, like big. We're not only talking Joe Rogan levels. We're talking like mom and pop shops that literally have like a candy store, and they have their own talk show, and they have like 500 listeners, 2,000 listeners. And I did some digging, and the numbers were astronomical. So I got my software that I can find any email for any CEO or owner of a website. I can get their email. So I popped open iTunes and I found like some podcasts, about 15 of them. And I started to gather their emails and just said, hey, I got this friend over here. He's amazing. He has this SaaS business. And he's about to do some Series B. And he has a cool story. Would you like that intro? 3 responded and he got 1 placement. That placement, fast forward 3 months, someone listened to that podcast and they bought his business.
Wow.
And that podcast had 149 listeners. And I'm gonna go into why the audience size doesn't really matter on podcasts, but I'll say that soon. But that got me thinking, hey, I got this asset of knowledge. Dude, podcasts are an amazing way of getting traffic, an amazing way of getting authority, an amazing way of getting your story out there. Why don't I just start to place people on podcasts as a guest? And I started small. You can even look, we got connected on Facebook. So you can literally backtrace my journey on the podcast back to September 2022, when I started this journey. And that has just been taking off. And I've had some amazing clients, some big losses too. But that just got me to know, okay, what to do, what not to do, how to go about this, like doing it professionally, right? So fast forward a year, and I've nailed it down to a science, man. How to get booked on podcasts. And then what I'm working on now is, once you do get booked on podcasts, what do you do after you get booked, right? So you have 4 or 5 episodes. How do you turn those episodes into digital assets to like make the most out of it? So that's what I've been doing for the past 9 months.
That's insane. So not only you're I love how you described it as a podcast tour, like going on a podcast tour. It's like a physical tour, like you see Taylor Swift and Beyonce cleaning up now, billion dollar tours, and you're doing the same thing. So I'm curious. So why does audience size not matter? That's super interesting.
Okay. And mind you, I'm going to try to explain this the way I see it, but I don't have like hard evidence, but I'm just going to give you my intuition and my experience. Okay, so if I tell you, hey, I got a YouTube channel with 100 listeners, in today's terms, that's not a lot of people, right? Like 100 subs is nothing. 200 subs is nothing. 2,000 subs is, you're getting there, but okay, now let's backtrack. What if I told you I can place you on a conference at a Hilton hotel with 100 CEOs of 7-8 figure businesses? Is that worth it?
Absolutely.
So my point is, don't see podcasts as songs or mindless YouTube channels. Look at them as gravity and interest matching assets. So when you have a host, right, especially in today's day and age where you have companies, SaaS founders, like one SaaS founder can have a podcast, and that podcast can have 500 listeners, but those 500 are his customers that pay him $600-700 a month. Then you have 500 people paying someone $500-600-700, $1,000 a month. That's a well-run, now you know that those 500 business owners have money to spend. So now look at it that way. Like if you go on a podcast with 150 listeners or 149 listeners, but 80% of them have an established business, that's like getting in a room and you become like the panel speaker to these 149 people.
Yeah.
So look at it that way, right? Don't look at it audience-wise. Look at it conference-wise. How would this be in a conference? Because if you look at the traditional media, or traditional, like I'm talking radio, even media like YouTube, Facebook, you're paying Zuckerberg thousands of dollars for 30 seconds or 15 seconds of runtime of the ad, right? But in a podcast setting, the attention span is 10 to 15 minutes, if not more. So you're essentially like compressing time frame and augmenting attention span on a podcast. So I would even argue getting on a 200 audience podcast with business owners is even more valuable than getting like a 20-second snippet out of in an ad somewhere, like on running Facebook ads, just paying Zuckerberg like $1,000.
Yep.
Getting on 1 or 2 podcasts with 200 listeners, 300 listeners, and speaking for 1 hour, 40 minutes, 2 hours is more valuable because of the attention span, the concentrated audience that is listening to that, and you're borrowing authority from the host.
Right.
So it's like a trifecta of like weird mixed cocktail.
No, that makes
does that make sense?
Makes huge sense, honestly, because it's undivided attention versus non-undivided attention. They're just locked in and listening to you. So I have 2 questions to follow up on that. So how do you know what podcasts to get people on? How do you know what podcasts are going to be a good fit for this particular person and the business aims they have?
Yeah, that's a good question. And well, first of all, I spent a lot of time, a lot of money to gather the like hundreds of thousands of podcasts and their contact details, the owners, the phone numbers. So I got that as an asset. But other than that, you can go yourself and book yourself in podcasts, and I'll show you in a bit how you can do that. But you got to ask yourself, where does my audience hang out? So the typical avatar, let's say, for example, you're into finance, right? And your target audience is a 45-year-old C-suite executive that runs or manages some funds, right? Okay, how does his life look like? Does he jog in the morning? Does he run in the morning? Does he go fishing? Does he like boxing? Is he a father? And now you can start to say, okay, there's all these podcasts in self-development, economy, finance, motivation, entrepreneur stories. But there's also podcasts about being a father and being an entrepreneur, right? There's a lot of podcasts on this. There's a lot of podcasts on fishing, fighting. So you can become a guest on a boxing podcast. If you have a lot of experience in boxing, you can say, like, you can share your story of being an entrepreneur, but also doing 10 years of boxing. So it's kind of a story-based promotion instead of just saying, I got this by my shit. It's more like linking your interest and also where your customers hang out. That's where you're targeting, right?
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's how I would go about it. And then I'll share with your audience also how to get booked on podcasts.
Amazing.
It's not rocket science, but there is a system. Okay, and here's the system. Number one rule: before anything, just look at your situation, your story, your company, who you are as a business owner, and answer this question: what assumption does the market have that I can prove to be wrong? So what assumption does the market have that I can prove to be wrong? That can mean so many things, but I'll give you an example. One of my clients, he does high-ticket closing, like $50,000 deals, $100,000 deals, only on chat.
Wow.
Zero phone calls, zero nothing, just chat. Chat and SMS and WhatsApp. That's it.
Wow.
Zero Zoom, zero nothing. That's like an assumption, right? Yeah. The assumption in the marketplace is you need 7 meetings, you need phone calls, you need to do this. No. And he says, no. That's just a wrong assumption. I can close that deal with chat. So the assumption the marketplace has that he can tackle and he can prove to be wrong is saying to a podcast, hey guys, for example, a business podcast, a sales podcast, a agency podcast, marketing podcast, just there he has like 90,000 active podcasts, right? So he goes to a podcast and he says, hey guys, you know how you think you need 90,000 or let's say 12 phone calls to close a 100K deal? Well, I've been closing 3.2 million the past 3 years only by chat. Wow. And I can prove it. And I can teach your audience how to do that. Dude, the responses just came flooding in because you're actually sharing something that goes against the grain. And if you can share it in a systematic way, in tangible way, in actionable way, you're giving value to your audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? That's awesome. Right? So, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's step number one. Ask yourself, what assumption does the market have that I can prove to be wrong? And it doesn't have to be business-wise. It can be logistic-wise. Maybe you have an e-com store and you figured out a way to do logistics in a much smoother way, in a much better way. You figured out how to phrase a contract better than anyone else, so you get better terms. It can be anything, right? But just find that little assumption. I call it the assumption cracker, and explain it in an easy way for a sixth grader to understand. And that is your pitch. That is your pitch, right? So that is step number one. Find the assumption cracker. Find what the assumption the market has and how you can prove to be wrong. Okay. Now step number two. Step number two is, okay, fine. I got the assumption cracker. What podcast do I go for, right? Now, there's the free answer, the free way, which is the slow way, or there is the paid way, which is the fast way. I'm not here to recommend anything, but me, myself, I like to compress time frame, and I usually spend a few $100 to go fast. But I'll share with you both. Number one, the fast and free way. You can go into a website called snog.io, okay? Snog.io is an extension on the Chrome which allows you to click on a website and get the owner's email. That's how I got started, by the way. Nice. You get the owner's email. So you do some digging, you go to iTunes, you go to Spotify, you go to Facebook groups, what have you. And you literally find your target podcast. You do a list, 20, 30, 40, and you gather their email, and that's it. That's done for step number 2. Now the paid version and the fast version, which I strongly recommend. There are 2 softwares out there called Podseeker and Podcast Hawk. They're a bit on the expensive side. I'm not going to lie, about $200 or $150 or something like that. But it's like a database for podcasts. So you can literally say, I want to target the business niche. I want to target the parenting niche. I want them to have this audience, this size of audience. I want them to have these reviews. It's like the Rolls Royce, it's just click and play. It is a bit expensive, but hey, if you're serious about it, there's no doubt in my mind you shouldn't do it. And they even have a free trial. Nice. So Podcast Hawk, Podseeker, okay? And you gather them, and now comes step number 3, which is, okay, cool. I got my pitch. I got the podcast and their contact details. How do I even contact them? Again, there is the free version, slower version, or there is the paid version and a little bit slower. The free version is, I'd suggest locking out 7 days a week, like 7 days in a row, where you reach out to 15 podcasts on email, writing them by hand. Okay? Do that for 7 days. I guarantee you'll get responses. Or you can do it in 1 day by heading over to Woodpecker or omni.us. The cool thing with omni.us is they're such a new company that they have like a $1 free $1 a month trial.
Oh, nice.
So it's a cold email software, which it literally does cold emailing. You just put in the CSV file that you had your podcast in. You put that in the cold email sequence. You use the assumption cracker pitch that I showed you, and you just hit play. Now, a bit of nuances to that. Number 1, when you do cold outreach, especially in the software, like cold email software, don't go more than 25 or 20 emails a day. I know it says that you can go for 500.
Yeah.
I've done cold email for many years. Trust me, you don't want to do that. Just stick it, and you don't even need to. Just stick it to 20 a day. Leave it for 4 days. I guarantee you will have people coming in. And number 2 is visuals are kind of interesting with cold email. And I've tried this, and I've had some pretty remarkable differences and results in where I put the headline like, hey, I can teach your audience this. And then I do in bold, and I even put it in like green color, like green background. I'll share with you the email so that you see it. It's like, it's got like 3 colors. It's like the black color, which is the title, the black, bold, and green, which is the pitch, like the assumption that I can prove to be wrong. And then like the CTA, or hey, would you like to have me on the podcast, is like on a underlined. And that sticks out to the eye when you're reading email. You're like, hey, what's this? So you read even closer. I know it sounds weird, so I'll share with you the screenshot.
Oh, amazing. Let's see it.
So so you can see it. And that got my client booked on 7 podcasts in 20 hours.
Wow. That fast.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Less than a day.
So,
that's awesome.
All right. What else? Yeah, big tip. Do not go only for the big podcasts.
Okay.
Go for smaller and go for up and coming. because you have a chance to build a relationship. What happens with the up and coming is it's easier to get booked because it's easier to reach the owner. And once they're big enough, hey, you can do a podcast tour number 2 and go again 6 months later, a year later, two years later. Like you see with the Joe Rogan,
Right.
the most freaking guests he has are the ones that was with him in the past. Brendan, what's his name? Eddie Bravo and Uncle Joey, right?
Yeah.
Those are with him in the couch when he had 0 listeners. Now he brings them on every time. Sure, it helps their friends, but my point remains the same. So go for smaller, go for up and coming. That's my big tip.
Nice. Sweet. So now we know, how to go get these podcasts booked. Now, how do you actually structure a podcast in terms of material and call to action so that you go on the podcast and your business explodes? What are some tips you have about that in terms of these experts going on these podcasts, your clients? What are some ways you've seen work for them in terms of what content they deliver on the podcast?
Yeah, I'll share that with you. I just wanted to say one thing before I forgot. Okay. So once you are on these podcasts, like actually deliver value. And I know it's like a soundbite, but actually do a step-by-step process, like a step-by-step, tangible, actionable advice. Number 1 rule. And then number 2, what's actually funny, and I've just been seeing this for the past 4 or 5 months, is that don't forget that you as a business owner already have potential clients and an audience that you've been slow cooking or pre-selling for the time you've been in business. And when they start seeing that you are a podcast, because I remind you, podcasts are a similar, it's like synonymous to authority. So when your potential clients start to see that you've been guesting on podcasts and they get exposed to your long form content, they get even more so. It's happened to me so many times now, where my client says, not only did I get a few more new audience members, but I actually got a bunch of deals from 2-3 years ago that just came back and saw the long form and decided to hire me. So that's number 1. Like, have something of tangible proof and tangible experience, tangible action steps. Number 2 is don't pitch. Like, your expertise is the pitch enough.
Nice.
Your expertise is the pitch enough, right? We live in an age now where you can put up a website for $12. You pay LinkedIn Premium, and you're an expert and you're an owner, right? So the day and age we are right now is demonstration. When I demonstrate my expertise, like literally just demonstrate your expertise, and you'll be ahead of 90% of people talking on podcasts or on these YouTube channels or whatever. Just demonstrate, and people will gravitate towards you.
Nice.
And number 3 is the biggest one that I've had a real breakthrough in, and I'd happily share this with you guys. When you start to get on podcasts, even if it's just one podcast, what you do with that podcast episode is turn that into a digital asset. And I'll share with you how I do it. What I mean by that is one podcast episode in video format can be easily turned into a newsletter, a blog article, a press release, a sound bite, so you can clip it, chop it, put it on TikTok, clip it, chop it, put it on ads. So just imagine when you're on a roll, you have a 1.5 hour podcast, you find 20 seconds that are really, really good, you chop that up, you put ads to it. That's your video for the ad. And now you're in a podcast setting. It's synonymous to authority. People outside, even cold traffic, will understand how a podcast looks, so they will pay more attention. So, and the way I've been doing it so far, I'm not saying it's 100% perfect, but it's 100% useful. That is, go to a AI tool called Descript.
Yep.
Descript and ChatGPT, and what you do is you run the episode by Descript, and it gives you a transcribed version. Then what you do is you take that transcribed version, you pop it on ChatGPT, and follow I may be wrong here, but it's the crisp prompt, which is context. It's context, intention, result. So I'll look that up and to you. I have it on my notes. But it's basically, you want to give ChatGPT context, you want to give it guidelines, you want to give it the outcome, you want to give it the style, and then you tell it, write me a simple blog post, write me a simple newsletter, write me a simple. So that's not the finished product, by the way. Now the outcome of the ChatGPT, what it spits out, you just proofread it yourself, right, or have your VA do it. Right. But you're saving yourself like 60%, 70% of the work just there, right?
That's awesome.
Those are the 3 steps to actually maximize. So, but by the way, now I remember, not only the assumption cracker, but I actually have another one, which is the friend connector. It's a bit sneaky, but it's 100% useful. You find a podcast, you email them from another email that you have, and you say, hey, I have this amazing friend of mine, or amazing client of mine, or amazing guy I know in business. He does X, Y, and Z amazingly, and I've been following your channel for some time. I'd love to see if he can be a guest. Would you like an intro? Something along those lines. So you're like the listener who wants to intro to his friend or his, and that works really well. It's a bit naughty and a bit sneaky, but it's useful. So
interesting. That's so funny. That's about this Descript and ChatGPT thing. That's so cool. And I'll just humble brag about our agency. So Descript's actually one of our clients, and we love Descript. They're amazing, and it's so fun. It's so amazing.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. They're instant.
That's awesome,
and it's insane to see how they continue to develop it. It's unbelievable tool. But that's super cool. And you might even be able to ask ChatGPT to identify that if you put in the timestamps, you'd probably say like, hey, find me the most impactful clips even, and it'll be like, oh, there's like 10 seconds to 12 seconds. Like as you've been talking, I've like in my head thought, oh, I need to get this clip of Lucas because that was like an amazing soundbite. You got you got like 10 of them so far. So
cool, man.
Clearly you're definitely you practice this craft very well, and you're master at it now, which is awesome. So
I'm learning something new every day, but my point is it's at least good enough to make it work. So
100%.
I promise you what I've just shared with you guys, just put it into practice, and I promise you by the end of the week, if you contact 20 podcasts, you will get one booked. 100%.
So. And then so I guess honestly, having done a little bit of this, not nearly to the level you have, but just in having done quite a bit of cold outreach and on a few podcasts, there's no way if you execute what you just laid out, you will see results. There's absolutely zero doubt.
Yeah, man.
So I just think it's all about doing that work. And you laid out an amazing, really clear formula for achieving results. So, so basically so I guess I firmly believe everything that you're saying in terms of the power of podcasts, but I do know some people who think, well, maybe they're a little bit skeptical and they think, well, how do I know if it's actually going to work? How can I actually evaluate whether or not getting on podcasts works? Like, let's just stick to, obviously there's the asset creation side, which is basically, that's a reason alone to do all this stuff because you're creating assets by just showing up. But if we just focus on, let's say, the impact of going on someone's podcast, how would you address that objection of, well, I don't think it actually works? How can you tell if a podcast appearance is actually working in terms of generating results for your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously, when you go on a podcast, you do want to have a clear CTA or like a clear, hey, if you want to know more, here's my email, here's my website, the typical. But for those people, I would just say, if you study the biggest SaaS companies right now, and not even the biggest, no, the biggest and the big up and coming podcasts that are looking for money, like doing Series A, Series B. They're doing a bunch of they don't call it podcasts, they call it interviews. So I can promise you the biggest and up and coming SaaS companies and companies out there, their founders are getting booked on interviews, every single one of them. And the funny thing is, they have no more than 2,000 listens. They don't have, it's not the 3 million, 5 million. They have about 500 listeners to 1,000 listeners. But yeah, they're doing it. Yeah. And that's proof enough. If you don't believe me, go to one of the biggest websites that deals with SaaS. It's called GetLatka. I don't know if you're familiar.
Of course, yeah.
The founder of GetLatka even has a podcast.
Yeah.
And he encourages every single one of them to get on podcasts. So
yeah. And I think too, there's just so many upsides to it, because basically it makes content creation, which if you're staring at a blank screen, writing something from scratch, even if you're the world's greatest expert at whatever, it's a challenge, Whereas if you have a casual conversation, people pose questions, you respond to them using your expertise, content just gets created magically. And then, like you said, you can take, these video creation tools, you can take the transcription tools, and then with ChatGPT, boom, you can create stuff. Even before ChatGPT, you could take that raw transcript and just say, hey, I'm going to pull out this chunk, rewrite it a little bit, boom, there's a post right there. There's an actual article right there. So 100%. I mean, I'll just say, like, on our side for our agency, we're starting to do these weekly, essentially, podcasts with our team, public facing, where we get questions and answers, and that's going to populate a lot of our newsletter content for our agency, because it's a way for our internal experts to get a microphone and share their expertise, and then we can put that on blast publicly and make and share value, and also just increase our people's exposure and their profile. So yeah, I 100% believe the power of what you're talking about. So what's next? I mean, where do you see things going? Do you see any trends or any kind of exciting developments or things that maybe people should be concerned about when it comes to this kind of content? Is it saturated? Is it okay?
No, I would say the more niche it is, the better. Because, and this is just my theory, this is just my hunch, but AI is allowing creators to get even more successful. And what I mean by that is, with the overload of information and content that is being generated now by AI, we will we will be more selective of the places we do listen to and we do take in. So we're even more prone to be able to spend money on a valuable, curated source of information. Because there's so much information now where we don't even know if it's generated by AI or not, or what we can trust or not. I know from experience, I tend to gravitate now more to the experts in my field that I'm interested in. And I always look, do they have a newsletter? Do they have a podcast? Do they have a Facebook group? Do they have a school community? So I would say more and more now that the AI is bombarding with content, and getting on, curating and finding these pockets of golden information is going to be more and more and more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. What do you believe?
No, I think I believe the same thing. I mean, I think that even now I'm noticing in social media posts, and even like Twitter replies, people are clearly using ChatGPT, and it's like my brain is already has sort of like a pattern recognition tool where I just I ignore it. I go, oh, this is some canned ChatGPT response that someone has like put some simple prompt into and they generated something. And so I think the value of authentic communication, until of course AI can replicate that. Like I just had the thought, we were talking here, we could train a large language model on everything I've said, everything that you said over all of our different episodes, and they go, hey, Ian and Lucas have a podcast. Your AI avatars.
Have you seen the deep fakes that they've been doing with Joe Rogan?
Like, oh yeah,
dude, it's fucking hilarious. It's scary.
So
I'll tell you this: when we get to that point, we have a bigger problem than podcast. I mean,
No,
then we have like
I agree.
existential problems. So
Yeah.
until then,
Yeah.
let's get some pods and go. Go
Yeah.
hams on what you
No,
say.
totally. Yeah. I think, but just to come back to your question, what I think that there will be more of a premium placed on
Yes.
human relationships, like human to human relationships. And
the funny thing is, you will want to pay that.
Yeah.
You will want, because you want that curated. Okay, this information is not made by AI, or this is coming from a real source. I trust it. I'm willing to pay monthly for it.
Yeah.
I would even go as far to say, as a podcast, you can take a premium for it. If you really like, you can take $15 a month, and you get access to the one call a week or one call a month podcast.
It's like, just to keep hyping up podcasts, but I really think they're unbelievable from just a personal perspective, because you think about that maxim that you are most like the 5 people who you hang out with, right? The most. It's true. And with podcasts nowadays, you can basically choose who you're going to be hanging out with, and you can choose which individuals you're going to allow to influence your development and your thought, your thinking, and which sources of information you use to kind of develop your own perspectives and your own everything. So it's an unbelievable time to be alive from that sense. And yeah, I love everything you're talking about. I love how you broke it down into these really actionable steps for everybody. So I think that anyone listening, please do yourself a favor, follow what Lucas is saying. But also, Lucas, so you actually, humble guy here, you shared all this great knowledge, but you actually, this is what you do. This is what you do all day, every day. So if people want to actually tap into your, everything that you got going on, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I'll share with you my personal email or my Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook. So if you want to be on a podcast tour with, like, if you see yourself going on a tour, just like you said, with the artists and stuff that they do, if you can see yourself going on a podcast tour and promoting yourself, your brand, for the next 90 days, I do offer a podcast tour with 20 podcasts. And then I take the 3 best performing podcasts, and I back engineer them, and I mold them into digital assets. So you got blog posts, you got news articles, you got snippets out of the 3 best performing podcasts.
Nice.
So that's what I do. So I'll just link my email, and for those of you that want info, just shoot me an email and I'll respond ASAP.
Can you just spell out your email so people listening can
yeah, sure. It's my personal. I'll take my Gmail. So Lucas with a K, Lucas Selman, SELMAN @gmail.com.
So LUKASSELMAN @gmail.com.
Yes.
Perfect. Got a personal inbox right there, everybody. So
sir.
Yeah.
Don't go spamming it, but
yeah.
I read every single one. Yeah.
Awesome.
By the way, is just caveat. I've been noticing I'm a cold email freak, so I do all of my cold emails from Gmail accounts, rinky-dinky Gmail accounts.
Really?
The inbox rate is amazing. I don't know what they're on. Yeah, man. I'll share. I just did a cold email campaign, 68% open rates just with Gmail. Like I have Lucas Selman 001 at gmail.com.
Yeah.
68% open rate. And
that's insane. And so, and there's no kind of disconnect in terms of, people think, this is some random person.
I don't put a signature, nothing. Just plain text. I keep it short. So I keep it 5 sentences, 4 sentences.
Yeah.
60. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm sorry, it's off track, but
no, dude, we got to do another call on cold email. I mean, that's a huge. I'll ask you this too. I mean, since you do so much cold email, what are you scared of what the next few years hold for cold email, or do you think it will continue to be a great channel for new business acquisition?
Man, that's a great question, but let me put it this way. Don't look at it as email. Look at it as chat-based cold outreach. If you can do that, you can do it with LinkedIn, you can do it with Twitter, you can do it with the WhatsApp, you can do it with Telegram, you can do it with Instagram. So the same methodology applies. Absolutely. But in terms of cold email, Man, here's what I will say. I've noticed that new up and coming platforms don't give a shit about rules. They want people to just, go crazy, to hype up the numbers, and they don't look at regulations or terms and conditions so much. Think of Facebook, 2016, 2017. People were doing insane numbers, making all kinds of claims on ads, right?
Yeah.
Look at email 20 years ago, 10 years ago, much easier. So I do agree, as platforms get stabilized and they get like sophisticated, yes, they get like regulated. But just like when a new regulated platform comes up, there's a new platform that's up and coming, and you can ride that wave.
Got it.
I've seen some, I'm no Twitter expert, but I've seen some amazing, now that since Elon took over Twitter, the reach has been insane. I've seen people with like 400 followers doing like a post, and it reaches hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So cold email as a concept of reaching out to a potential business deal in text form is never going to die out, I think. But you can take that, you can take that methodology and apply it to cold DMs, cold PMs.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know. I always feel like when we've done cold email that I've had some clue, but haven't been as informed as, maybe some of the other stuff that we do. So yeah, no, it's that. I mean, the Gmail thing is super interesting too. But
it is. I'm no cold email expert. I just wanted to share that with you. Maybe some audience has the answer or has input, but I've just seen that to be pretty interesting. I have 5 Gmails, sending about 20 to 15 a day. I know it's not a lot in cold email numbers, but I look at my inbox. It gets tons with responses every day.
That's insane.
I just give it 15 a day times 5 emails. Just that. I don't pump up the numbers. I just keep them between 15 and 20 a day. That's it. Four sentences, and only email.
I mean, like you said too, it's once you kind of dial in the messaging, it's pretty platform agnostic. You can use it on DMs, PMs, whatever. So yeah, it's really cool. Well, Lucas, man, so people can get a hold of you, lukasselman@gmail.com. They're going to get 100% open rate sending that email because you're going to read every one. So,
cool. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, everybody, please reach out to Lucas if you are of any interest in just chatting about podcasts. So I think he can really help and get you set up and get you going. And Lucas, man, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with our people, and looking forward to hopefully getting some case studies from just implementing the valuable stuff you shared on the show today.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for checking out the show today. Remember that you can claim your 7-day free access to vidtao.com, our app with over 7 million unlisted YouTube ads, landing pages, and funnels. Just go to vidtao.com to start that free trial. This podcast is also sponsored by Inceply.com. Inceply is a direct response video advertising agency, and it's generated over $950 million in direct response revenue for Inceply's clients via video platforms like YouTube, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Meta, and more. They're experts in both producing high-performing direct response video creatives and also scaling the ad accounts themselves, so expert media buyers, and very important, custom deep data analysis to make sure your tracking and attribution is 100% rock solid and tailored to your unique business and funnels. So if you're already spending at least $1,000 per day on ads and looking to take your results to the next level on platforms like YouTube, YouTube Shorts, Connected TV, and more, go ahead and claim a free brainstorm session with the Inceply team. Just go to inceply.com/vidtao. That's INCEPTLY.com/vidtao and claim a free brainstorm session. And just so you know, this is not a sales call. On this brainstorm session, the Inceply team will work with you to uncover insights you and your team can use to unlock new opportunities and scale on video traffic platforms. Just go to inceply.com/vidtao to claim your spot. All right. Thanks so much for checking out our show and being part of our community. Once again, this has been VidTao co-founder Ian Naj signing off. Have a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world, and take care.